So responsive web design is big. Responsive web design is big. We have a lot of devices, a lot of screen sizes, and users have very high expectations, right? I'm sure you know that by now. So after working with responsive web design, you would notice that it's really nothing new. It's mostly about writing clean code. And by clean code, I mean telling the browser what you are really doing. So to do that, I'm going to give you a few examples to show you my point. So here we have 3 boxes. And what I used to do to align them next to each other, I would use float left with CSS. And the bad thing with float is that it breaks the flow of the document. So if you wanted to align these elements to the center or align them vertically, you cannot do that with floats. So with inline blocks, you can let elements, they behave as a block, but then they align next to each other. So this is great when you want to do something like this. And it lets you do more things to make your design responsive. To give you another example, before we used to set a width in pixels. So imagine you are setting the width of this box to be 500 pixels. This is bad because it will show as 500 pixels if it's on a huge screen or if it's on a mobile device. Now, what am I really trying to do with this box? What I really want is I want this box to have a width that is 50% the width of the whole screen. So to do that, I can just tell the browser that I want the width to be 50%. So that way you are being responsive because here I set for each box to have a certain percentage. And now when I try to resize the window, they maintain the same percentage. Another thing, and this is helpful when we're writing Arabic. Notice that these 3 the 3 numbers here, 1, 2, 3, they are all aligned to the other end of the box. So in this case, since it's English characters, it's aligned to the right. In the case of Arabic, it's aligned to the left. Now, what you might do is align them to the right, these ones. So you say text align right, and then here you would have to say text align left. So that's more code that you have to write. But really what you're doing is you want the text to be aligned to the end of the line. That's all you're doing. So you can say text align end. This is a recent property, but it's there. And this is very helpful, especially if you're working with Arabic websites, and it helps a lot in responsive design. You are telling the browser what you are doing. You're not saying left or right. We're going back a little bit to inline blocks. Another great thing about inline blocks, I was saying that they behave like words. So imagine these 3 blocks, they are also inline blocks. And well, the screen here is smaller, but this one, if the screen was bigger, this one would go here. The screen is smaller, so this one came here. And if you make the screen even smaller, okay. So they go to the bottom. So you're being responsive here because things are flowing naturally. So now I was showing you properties that are natural. So you are not saying that if the screen size is something specific, do this. You're just saying percentages, inline blocks, text alignment. But you can, if you need to, it's sort of a last resort. You can tell the browser that if a screen size is 500 pixels, do this. If a screen size is more than 1000 pixels, do that. And you will always need to do that. For example, in this case, imagine that I'm seeing this screen on a mobile device. I don't want to see these 3 boxes next to each other because they're going to be really small and I won't be able to see them. So what you can do is you would say that if the screen size is less than 500 pixels, so that's a media query, media screen, and max width is 500 pixels, I want the width for each of these boxes to be 100%. Let's see what this does. So if you put this media query and resize the screen, yep. So now it's still a percentage. We hit 500 pixels, so they became below each other, each taking 100%. So if you're on a mobile phone, you can see the 3 boxes clearly because they're below each other. And one last thing. Font sizes. It's also common to use font sizes in pixels, so you would say that you want the font size of this title here to be 20 pixels. But this is also bad. It's not responsive. It doesn't allow people with disabilities to see your text clearly, because this is this is static. No matter what the user wants to see the font size in, it's going to be 20 pixels. What you can do instead is you use relative measurements. So you would say that you want this font size to be 1.5 EM. What this means is that you want the font size to be 1.5 times the size of the parent font size. So what's good here is you would, if the user set the font size because, they're old and they don't see well and they need a bigger font size, this is making the font size to be 1.5 times the font size that they want. So, and this also helps in responsive design because all the elements behave based on their parents. And I think that's it. Thanks.